guess what? When we get to the middle part of this presentation, you're going to find us talking about some really valuable information around objections and how to welcome them and not be put off. So hang out with us till the end. We have an offer for you as well. Before I get started and bring my good friend Bernard in, I want to start off with a quote from, my mouse just died, from Brian Monahan's book, Customer Delight 365. So today is being a great day for this quote. It's by Benjamin Franklin, and it says, "Remember not only to say the right thing in the right place, but far more difficult still, to leave unsaid the wrong thing at the tempting moment." I like what Brian says about that in his, it's just like one sentence. Customer delight sometimes involves a callous tongue. Bite down with delight. So as we launch into today's topic, think about that quote, because it's really relevant to what we're going to be talking about today. Here's my good friend, Bernard, all the way from the UK. We don't need to talk about time zones. We do that every time. So that's all I'm saying about time zones. But we started off last week, we started talking about objections and felt that there was needed more time, and we didn't want to just rush over it. So we wanted to spend a little bit more time with everybody here so that they could get more for their bang for their buck. I wanted to share the screen. Is there anything you want to say before I share the screen?
No, just hello, Phil. Hello, everybody. And yes, we're carrying on talking about how to manage or handle or deal with objections, or however you want to phrase it.
Exactly. And here we go, sharing the screen. And it should pop up momentarily. Here it comes. Look at that, the spinning wheel. So the good-looking guy in the dark jersey, sweater, pullover, cardigan. No, it's not a cardigan. Something keeping him warm is Bernard Keevy. And the other really good-looking guy who's not wearing a sweater.
A very good-looking guy.
The other very good-looking guy, yes, thank you, is myself. Often I go by the name Coach Phil. That's my brand up there. And my mouse died again. I think the battery needs changing.
Oh dear.
So last week we talked about there's only 6 objections. And so we just want to do a quick recap. The first one is, and I don't think they're any particular order because they show up in the consciousness of the people we're talking to. Yeah. One is budget, the other is need, don't need it, don't want it, etc. Right? Timing's not right. You know, often people don't want to buy what we have to offer on our schedule. They have their own buyer's journey, right, Bernard?
They do, yeah. I agree with that. Yeah. And if it's not the right time, it's not the right time.
And maybe they don't like us, or maybe the relationship's not strong enough yet. Maybe the trust hasn't been built. Those are 4 common ones that happen frequently. It doesn't have to happen every time, does it? All 4 of those?
No, not all 4 together, but there's a fair chance that at least one of them will be present most times, I would say. Yeah.
Those are the 4 main ones. And then depending on what industry you're in, there's 2 other ones, and they're specifically tied to the technical side of things. So being a plumber, HVAC person, chiropractor, printer, landscaper, lawyer, they would all have slightly different technical objections, but all of us have all 4 of the initial ones: budget, need, time, timing, and relationship. So we don't want to beat that dead horse to death. It's already dead. We've already talked about it, but those are 4 important things. Anything you want to say before we jump into the next one, which is a follow-on to last week?
No, other than people tend to hide behind. So the real objection might be any one of those, but they'll hide behind probably number 2, which is, I'm just looking, I'm not, I don't need anything at the moment. And possibly number 1, if you put them on the spot, where they'll just say, oh, it's too expensive, I can't afford it. So yeah.
Which then probably means you haven't built up the relationship, trust, and likability factor, right?
Yeah, probably. That's exactly right. Yeah. Well, the number 2 comes before you get a chance to, doesn't it? It's almost to fight you off before anything gets started because of the fear factor. So I'm just looking, I don't need anything. And so you need to get past that before you even start to develop the relationship. And then if the relationship isn't right, they'll probably use budget as an excuse not to go ahead. Would that be right, do you think? I don't know. I'm just thinking.
Well, it was good thinking, so keep thinking, because I think it was pretty good. Just remember, when you come up with those great bits of wisdom, think of the time when you actually did something like that, and what comes to mind?
I don't know. You tell me.
Oh, okay. I don't know what your experience is, so I can't speak. Because if I did, that would be like bullshit, lie. It would be me telling an untruth, and neither one of us are into telling untruths knowingly. We might accidentally have been misinformed with something, but it's not our intention to bamboozle anybody.
No, it's not.
I just know that when relationships are stronger, then the things like budget and need become less significant. Certainly, budget goes away.
Yeah, exactly.
But if we show up in a place of business and we're approached too quickly, I don't know why we're conditioned this way, but I am anyway, and many people I talk to are. We push back. We don't even consciously think about it. Just as I call it the knee-jerk reaction. Somebody approaches us, invades our space, doesn't make us feel welcome. We go, like you just said, no, just looking, not interested.
It's fight or flight. It's the primitive brain.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, we talked about a lot of that last week. Let's move on to the next one, which is kind of the same thing, only different. And my mouse, I need to wake it up. Here we go. Oops, too many. There we go. How to answer an objection. And what is an objection in your eyes, Bernard?
In my eyes, I would say an objection, as if we're talking just about an objection, it's probably a request for a question, a request for more information to help them make a decision as to whether they want to buy or not. And you can distinguish it from a condition, which is where, so it could be there's a genuine reason why they won't and can't buy. Maybe they haven't got the need. But an objection, if it's an objection, is normally a call for more information. They haven't got enough information, or the relationship isn't right yet. They need more before they can commit to decide to buy or not.
That's a lot of good, solid backup data and information. And if you were just to answer that with describing what an objection is, what would you say it is? I heard you say it, but I want to make sure we're clear.
A question.
Yeah. So if we're getting objections, should we fear them or welcome them?
Well, turning it round, if we're not getting objections, we should probably fear it, because if we're not getting objections, it probably indicates there's not sufficient interest there for people to buy. So we should welcome objections because it is an expression of interest.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you went there. That's where I was trying to get you to go. That's what I believe to be true. The great Brian Tracy, who's been training many salespeople in many countries for decades, is somebody who I'm certified as one of their sales facilitator trainers and coaches. That's what he says. Welcome objections. If you're not getting objections, they're probably not a good prospect. Because if they're not complaining about the budget, they probably don't have the money or the means to get the money, right? If you're buying a car, most people don't buy a car all for cash. They usually have some kind of payment plan. Not always, but more often than not. And if somebody says, no, I like it in blue, it looks great, the engine's perfect, the interior is beautiful. Yeah, no, I can't afford it. Often is what happens.
Yeah. If
they're honest, right? So you had added this, and I think it was a good add to our slide deck. How to answer an objection. I should have underneath that really a question, because really, like you said, if they're asking or throwing up objections, they're really giving it some serious consideration, whatever it is we're talking about, and they are getting more emotionally connected.
Yeah.
So what would you add to that?
Well, what I would add to that is, if someone does come up with an objection, you can't just ignore it. You can't just move on and hope it will go away. You've actually got to deal with it. And therefore, there is a process for dealing with it. And the process starts with, first of all, you need to acknowledge it. So you need to say, yes, that's a very good point. That's a very good question. Then you need to ask them to explain it more clearly. So, how do you mean? What do you mean by that? Specifically, give me, tell me a bit more. And you need to listen intently. And then once they've fully explained, and you can probe along the way, say, how do you mean? Tell me more. What do you mean by that? Then you need to pause so that they know that you've taken this objection seriously on board. And then you need to paraphrase it back to them to check that you fully understand what they've said and that they know you fully understand what they've said. And then you need to answer it. And then you need to check that they're happy with the answer. And it's only at that stage, having done all of those things, that you can then move on. Because if you don't actually deal with it fully in that way, then it's always going to be there, and it basically stops the sales process going any further, really. Would you agree with that, Phil? Does that sound a reasonably good process to you?
Yes, it's one of several ways to handle objections. Absolutely. I don't know if we have to deal with an objection immediately.
No, maybe not.
I think sometimes we do. So, for example, someone in the line of work that I'm in and you're in is very similar. We're both in the business consulting. Well, I'm less consulting. I'm just coaching. And people want to know, yeah, but what's the investment? What's the price? What's the cost? And I'll just say, you know what? That's a very good question. And right now, I really have no idea what to tell you in terms of what that might be without understanding whether this is a fit or not. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions to see where we'd land and what the investment might need to be for you to move forward? And often that's enough. But sometimes, well, what's the point of doing that if I don't know the dollars and cents? Maybe if I knew the dollars and cents, that might be a better thing to decide. And I can say, yeah, I totally get the price, and dollars and cents are part of the process. So what if I was to tell you it's free plus a profit? So sometimes that deflects it, so we can have the question period at the early stages of the sales process or discovery process. And then the other way to do it would be, or perhaps look at doing it, would be, if it's not a good fit, Mr. Customer, you wouldn't pay for it, would you? No. Well, in that case, there's no charge. So it's really diffusing all of those in a couple of different ways. And you certainly have to make it your own, make it second nature, and make it conversational. Not just spew out words or phrases, right? What do you think about that?
No, I agree. And I take your point about if someone asks the price too early in the sales process, then it's too early to deal with it as an objection. Then yes, park it for later. I would agree with you there. Yes. Definitely.
Yeah, I like that park it for later. That's something I use in my workshops, but I never thought of using that in my sales thinking process. So thank you for that nugget. A story this reminds me of is I was working in another business that I owned and was doing. Actually, was the foundation for getting into business coaching. But I was doing some marketing work with people, and I would use subcontractors. Like, I'm not a graphic designer by any stretch of the imagination. And so I need to bring in professional people, but I would go do the preliminary exploratory assessment. I was pretty good at doing that. And I would bring it back to my team of contractors that I partnered with. And I was at the particular business, was a dentist. We'll leave the name of the dentist out, but I was a dentist. And we did the discovery, found out what he was looking for and what he was hoping to achieve. And then he'd asked me a couple of times what the cost of it would be. And I said, I really have no idea. I need to go back to my design people, let them come up with a couple of concepts. and see what's really involved. Yeah, but if you did know what the price was, what do you think it would be? And I said, no, I really don't know what the price is. And he persisted, and I caved. And I said, well, you're probably 3,000 to 3,500 be a guess, but you can't hold me to this. Actually, I said before I gave him the price, you can't hold me to this. It's just a guesstimate. It's probably going to be wrong. He says, no, I won't hold you to it. Just trying to get an idea. So I gave him an idea. We came back with a presentation. It was $5,000. Guess what the dentist did? He said, you told me it was going to be $3,000 to $3,500. Yeah. And I said, yes. And you told me you wouldn't hold me to it. Right? So we didn't get to work. And I'll never forget that. So after hanging out with Brian Tracy and going through his sales training program about 13 years ago, I was reminded, and you alluded to it earlier in today's session, the price out of order. So the way to look at that is if you have a combination log, or if you're going to phone somebody, if you have the 7 or 10 digits that you need to make the phone call, and you just dial them randomly, but use all of those numbers, is it likely you're going to get hold of the person you want to get hold of?
Not very.
So there's a process, there's a methodology to it. You need to dial the country number and everything else after that in order to get to the person you want to get to. Same with the combination lock. You need to do what needs to be done in terms of the order and the numbers in sequence, and it will open it up. If you think of the sales process in the same sort of fashion, going through we've talked about a number of things in the whole sales process. Now we're dealing with the objections. Now, handling objections can start right from the beginning of it. Matter of fact, I just had a really fascinating call with a fellow yesterday out of Seattle. He specializes in helping people use the phone and voice communications to start the conversation. And he says, if you, where's my notes here? I want to get this right. I have one that's a little bit crude. Like, for example, if I was making an initial call, a first contact, I might say, hey, this is a cold call. Do you want me to hang up right now, or could you give me 27 seconds? And often that gets me a conversation because I throw myself under the bus right away. He made it a little bit different, and I captured it and I put it in a document here. And he would start out with, I know I'm an interruption. May I have 27 seconds to tell you why I'm calling? And 90% of the time, using that script, he gets the conversation. Because what people are afraid of is us trying to pitch them something. And I hate the word pitch unless you're playing baseball. And I know there's a lot of people in sales training and sales profession that still use pitch as a positive expression. And I'm not telling you to change. It's just I prefer not to do that because the connotation is I'm pitching you something. I'm not presenting something of value. That's my thinking. Doesn't have to be your thinking. But if somebody tries to pitch me, I know it's used. A friend of mine, Bryn Tillman, teaches how to use LinkedIn as a tool to build your network. It's a fabulous tool. But what does she call it? Connect and pitch, right? So I make a connection, and right away they're pitching. They're trying to tell me why I should have a conversation with them. And that really doesn't work. If we went to a networking event and tried that, people would walk away from us. We tend not to do that. We want to build rapport. So handling objections and answering questions that are considered objections are handled in the same way, don't you think, Bernard?
I do. And I think we can conclude from that by saying that the relationship's all important, and if you handle an objection in the right way, it will improve the relationship. But if you don't handle it in the right way, it'll probably set the relationship back, which is a bad thing.
Look at that. I meant to put you on the screen. It's a bad thing, Bernard?
I would think so. If you set the relationship back, given that the relationship is the major part of the sales process, then anything that improves the relationship is good, and anything that makes it less effective, if you like, is a bad thing. So not handling an objection in the right way or a question in the right way, it's not just that you haven't handled the objection, it's also that you've deteriorated the relationship. I don't know how clear that was.
Do you have an example where you've actually seen that happen either to you as a prospect, or you learned a lesson in doing any of that?
Well, I'm thinking of one, and I don't know if it's a good fit or not, but I remember speaking to a potential coach to join my team,
Mm-hmm.
and we went through all the process, and we got to the stage where it was time to sign. And I said, you're ready to sign up? He said, oh, yes. I said, well, I'll need to take your credit card details. And then it was, I'm not at home at the moment. I haven't got my credit card with me. I'm thinking, okay. I'll tell you what I'll do, he says. I'll phone you in the next half an hour when I've got my credit card. Says, oh, okay. And if not, I'll ring you later. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, and guess what happened?
Cricket.
No phone call, and when I rang, wasn't there. Well, I could have sworn we went through everything. We went through 2 meetings. We went through the presentation. We went through everything, fully agreement all the way along the line. Obviously, somewhere along the line, there was an objection, probably the price, I don't know. But that objection was still there, and we hadn't cleared it. And, even though it looked like the sale was a very warm, definite sale, it never happened.
So you just reminded me of something that I do in the positioning when I'm going through my own sales process. Because one of the things I hate is the cat and mouse thing. The people don't want to hurt our feelings. People generally are nice people. And they think if they tell us no, they're going to hurt our feelings. Where the reality is they hurt my feelings by saying maybe, or doing what you just, or not what you had just explained happened to you. So what I was taught and learned, and I really like it when I remember to use it, and I use it about 93% of the time. So that's pretty high. And that is, so congratulations for getting together and then exploring the possibilities to up-level your business. That's fantastic. I just have a couple of questions. And the first one I have is, we're still good with the time we have allocated, the 90 minutes. And they go, yeah. And then the second one is, when we get on the other side of this meeting, are you okay with telling me yes or no and forget the maybe? If it's not a fit, that's okay. Just say no, it's not a fit. Are you all right with that? And that usually stops the cat and mouse chasing, or the I don't want to hurt your feelings things. Sounds like maybe is what happened with the fellow that you were talking to. Or maybe there was somebody else, and this is something I don't know. Have you ever done this? You forget to ask them. So other than yourself, is there anybody else involved or that needs to be part of this process if they understand it? Many people will still say, no, it's just me. But when you get on the other side, well, I got to talk to partner, spouse, brother, sister, mother, right? Yeah, it's fun. There's no exact science to handling objections. I like what Ron's saying here. He's saying he thinks objections keep the conversation moving forward. I totally agree with that, because if you don't have any objections and you haven't got the order completed, then where are you at?
Yeah, no, that's spot on. Now, I did mention earlier, Phil, I've had another person booked to speak to me in about 5 minutes, so I have to leave early.
No, you can't leave early. You cannot leave early.
I'm sure you can conclude things in the next 5 minutes or so.
No, you've got to do this, because this is the one you put in there. You can't bail on me. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to make them wait. So jump on this, and then you can go.
Got it.
No, you go ahead. It's right there.
Oh, what am I jumping on?
I don't know. Finally, try this. Do you mind if I ask you the real reason?
Right. Yes. So if you get to where I got to, and you get the chance, because obviously I thought we had the sale and we didn't, but if you get to the final stage and they're still not wanting to sign, you could try one final tactic, which is, do you mind if I ask you, there still seems to be something that's stopping you going ahead today. Is it the price? And the important thing is to say, is it the price, without pausing? So there's something stopping you going ahead. Is it the price? Because if you do pause, it gives them the chance to say something else instead. But if you say that without the pause, then they've either really got to say, yeah, it's the price, it's too expensive, in which case you've got a chance to manage that objection, or they've really got to tell you what the objection is. And I think as a final tactic, that does work quite well. So that's something to bear in mind as a final tactic, if you like, or ploy, if it looks like they you still haven't got the commitment to go ahead. Does that make sense?
Very good. It makes sense enough for the time we have available for you, because you have to bolt. So we'll see you later. Thanks for being part of the show. Until we meet again. I'm hanging out though, guys. I'm getting rid of him. So Bernard had another thing that popped up. That's one of the downsides of having an automatic calendar where people can access your schedule. If you don't block it out, you can have things show up when you're not really available, or you forget to block it. This has happened to me. I thought, oh, I got this idea. I'm going to go see an old partner and go and drive down and have a coffee with them. And lo and behold, the next thing you know, the phone's ringing. They're wondering where I am. Well, I forgot to block it on my calendar. Anyway, I think something like that happened to Bernard, but it's an opportunity for him to be of service to somebody. So he's jumped off for now. He'll be back on another call. So that takes me to here, the Profit Accelerator assessment tool that both Bernard and I are able to do, whereas we can actually help any business without spending a nickel, penny, red cent on advertising or marketing, tap into some hidden potential up to, we boast $100,000. Quite often we can do that and exceed that, but sometimes it's not $100,000. It's a few $1,000s less. But what if we could find you an additional $50,000 in your business under the same premise, no advertising, nothing to spend any money on, and as a result of it, investing some time with us, what I would get out of this would be the case study that I could use to as evidentiary pieces to share with other businesses. Now, they wouldn't know exactly which business you are and where you're situated, and you'd certainly be get the right of refusal of doing that. But it's really a great opportunity to find out what you may not have understood about what you're doing in your business. And a couple of minor tweaks here and there, just like a kaleidoscope, could be something that, will help go to your bank account or your peace of mind. Anyway, if that appeals to you, send me an email to coachphil.ca. In the subject matter, put PAS for Profit Accelerator Software, or you can put in PAA, that would work too. And if you wanted a copy of a document that I have created around the 6 objections, let me know. Put objections in the subject line, and I will respond back with a copy of that so you can work on yours if you wanted to expand your skill set with handling objections. That brings us to the bottom of the hour. So I'm going to free up your life by a couple of minutes. I don't see any more questions by anybody else. And Bernard's gone off to serve somebody. I'm going to go off to do the same thing. Bernard Kiwi, the fellow who was here, my friend from the UK, and myself, Coach Phil Jones. I appreciate you being here. Thanks to Randy and Ron for chiming in. Appreciate your feedback, guys, and your comments. I look forward to connecting with you more. We'll be back on the airwaves in the Business Renovator on Monday. Until then, have a wonderful weekend. Be safe and prosper.